Hi everyone, my name is Alexa and welcome to my channel, Sandals and Steel Toes. Today is a very special video. I am here to announce to you all that we have hit a 1,000 subscriber milestone this week, which is huge news and just a big goal that I have been working towards achieving since 2020 when I started this channel. And why 1,000 subscribers is a big deal in the YouTube world means that at this point in time, I can now apply to have my content monetized, which means I can get some monetary compensation for the videos that I put out there. And the more that people watch, the more I would get paid for them. For me, I'm not looking for this to be a source of income by any means, just really a way to support my hobbies of gardening and content creation. Money's involved in keeping up with all of those things, and if I can have my hobby kind of pay for itself, then I'm in a really good place. So plus YouTube puts ads on all the videos anyway, so for the last 3 years, there have been ads on all of my videos and I have gotten nothing for them. So at this point in time, I have applied to be part of the YouTube creator program. And after that review process gets done, hopefully I will have my videos monetized. And it's just, it's a big milestone. Really, the first milestone with YouTube is getting started. If you have an idea or something you're passionate about, just taking the step to get started and put that out there is a huge milestone in and of itself. And then the second big milestone, I would say, is keeping up with it and continuing to create content, post videos as regularly as possible, and just keep putting it out there is the second huge milestone, if you can keep up with it. And then third would be you hit your 1,000 subscribers, you can be monetized, and then from there, like at this point, sky's the limit. I'm a very small channel. I'm not looking for anything great and mighty. Just a place to tell people about how to grow food, how to make pretty gardens, and sharing, that experience with you all. That's just really my main goal. And as I get into more about like me and why I started YouTube and how, what kind of kicked that off. Big part of my journey more recently is improving my health overall and getting my physical and mental state in a much better place than it had been in years past. And so a lot of my content that I want to focus on this year, 2023, going in, it's going to be centered around that, how I have personally been working through just fixing my health. So I've looked back at a lot of the videos that I've uploaded over the years, and I haven't really done a whole lot of about me type content. It is easy for me to talk about gardening and to share about my garden and talk about tomatoes and all of that. It's not quite as easy for me to talk a lot about myself and what has brought me to where I am, everything pre-YouTube, pre-social media, and just a lot of personal things I don't talk a whole lot about. A lot of it is just because, not that I don't want to share these things, it's just I feel like people don't care, or it's irrelevant to the content that I produce. People click on my videos because they see a garden and they want to see gardening things, but they don't necessarily care about the gardener herself. And that's just a lot of self-depleting talk. I am trying to get myself out of that because I do believe that people do care. Maybe not everyone cares, but the people who come back and interact with me through YouTube or other social media platforms, they care. And you know who you are. So I do want to take a little bit of time to kind of just share a little bit more about myself and my family and kind of just some background. So We are a family of 4 that lives in Northeast Ohio, so we're right by Lake Erie. We experience all the joys of lake effect snow. But the summers and the falls here are beautiful. It's just a completely different world when you think of Ohio. A lot of it is flat kind of farmland. But in my region, it is so diverse. I mean, we have so much wooded areas and valleys and gorges and the lake, obviously rivers. I mean, there's just a lot of diversity. And this area in the summer and fall is when it's at its peak, and it's just a really beautiful place to be in, and I do feel blessed to be here. My husband is Carmen, and him and I have been in a relationship for 18 years. We are high school sweethearts. He actually proposed to me on Valentine's Day, my senior year of high school, and then we got married 2 years later, and we started our family young. We had our son Anthony. I was 20 years old when I had him, and Lucas, I was 22. And we kind of started our life backwards, if you will. We had our kids and we got married, and through that, we've been working on our education. I've got pictures of me with the boys. I was baby, I did a lot of baby wearing when they were little, and I would wear them on my body to get them to take naps and stuff while I'm on my computer going through my bachelor's degree program. And, we kind of worked our way from being, as kids with no finances really, and no house of our own, and all of that, to be able to get to where we are today. I think having the kids at a young age for both of us really pushed us in ways that we needed. Kind of just thinking back to before we had them, we were having fun. We didn't really know what we wanted to do in life, and it was just kind of like, whatever, go with the flow. Nothing was really driving us to anything. And then having the kids is like, wow, we have these lives to take care of. We need to get ourselves together and have some responsibility for what we're doing. Through that, I was able to complete my bachelor's degree and got into the field of IT project management, which is nothing that I had ever thought that I wanted to be in. I actually got my degree in marketing and communications, so it's a whole story in itself how I got to be in the career field that I'm in now. But it has opened up so many doors and opportunities for a lot of different avenues, and I'm very thankful that happened. And then Carmen has been working very hard through the years for our family. He was in a job position where he was commuting 2 hours a day for 10 years. Together, we made the decision last May for him to leave that job, and he has become a full-time student, so he can go and pursue his college degrees at this time as well. So that's where we are now. He is working so hard, and I'm so proud of all that he does to further his education and get these degrees that he's working towards. Very, very proud of him. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. I will be happy to share more, in future videos. Why I started YouTube in the first place. So my channel, I think I created it in April or May of 2020, which, as if you remember, 2020 is the year of COVID. March of that year, I was temporarily put on a leave from my job. I wasn't working, and I was off work for about 3 months. And so at the beginning of that, it was March, and gardening season was just starting, and I was trying to plan my garden because in years prior, my gardens were really crappy. It's not that I didn't want to garden. I tried to make these gardens happen, but the plants never did very well. The weeds took over. It just looked awful. And that's because I had a very demanding and busy job. I wasn't able to put a lot of time into my gardens throughout the summer, because that's when my work has historically been the busiest. And so for me, in March timeframe, I'm like, okay, I have an opportunity to set my garden up and get it the way I want it and manage it so I can easily maintain it the rest of the year, especially when I get called to go back to work. And so I started looking at videos on YouTube about, trellising. One of my biggest issues over the years when I had my previous gardens was my tomatoes would just get, so big and overgrown, and they would fall over, and I would try and use like stakes and other things to keep them up, but nothing ever really worked well. So I started looking up online trellising systems for tomatoes, and through all that I found various different videos, and I actually came across Jessica Soward's Roots and Refuge Farm channel, and she has a very, very popular video, like millions of views, how to make an arch trellis, and that like hooked me. I was like, wow, that's so pretty, that's so affordable, like, yes, this is excellent. And then that got me into seeing that there is a whole community out there of people who just share everything that they do about the garden and the homestead, and just even, people who vlog about their life in general on YouTube. And I didn't really know that existed. For me, up to that point, YouTube was a place where video gamers would go to play their video games and hypnotize my children into watching other people play video games on the on the internet. And that's kind of, I was never into YouTube. I didn't care for it. I was like, this is, whatever, it's not for me. But then once I found that there was this whole kind of gardening niche out there, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I like to garden. I like to do a lot of this stuff. I like to film and make videos. I would like to try out this content creation thing just as a hobby. And I wasn't working, so I had the opportunity and the time to start doing that. And it was in that 2020 garden season that I started to share all of this on YouTube, and I don't know, tripled, quadrupled maybe my gardening space that year. If you go on my channel and like go all the way to the bottom of my videos, you'll see videos related to the 2020 garden and my first garden tour. It's called Garden Tour 1 2020. It's a cold spring. And if you go back to that video, my garden is pretty much bare bones. Like what it is today, it looks nothing like it. I had 4 raised beds, and we had tilled an area around the whole garden, and like it was flat. There was nothing there. And looking back at that video to what we have now, it just amazes me and how short of a time you can completely transform a space. But even in that season alone, that 2020 garden season, it was completely different. By May to August, it was a whole nother world. And I'm just so grateful that I captured all of that and the progress, because like looking back now, it's like, wow, it was really worth it, and it didn't take very long at all, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. So yeah, I had the time to share everything that I was doing on YouTube, and started, doing videos about how to do this, how to do that, garden tours, just kind of what was going on in our life at that time. And then I think it was about June of 2020 is when I got called back to go to work. I had a garden ready to go. Like, it's actually funny. The week after I got everything planted in my garden, I got called back to work. And I have a video actually talking about like all of my thoughts and feelings from that time about, okay, now I'm like in this beautiful space. All I want to do is garden all day long, because I had spent 3 months doing it and I felt so good. Like my mental state was so much better, my physical state was so much better, because I had time to get up and move every single day. I wasn't tied to a computer, and I was really sad that I had to go back to work and leave my garden. But I had got it into a place that it was going to be maintainable. Everything was planted, everything was mulched. Like all I had to do at that point was let things grow and pick it when it was done. And I did that. I did just that. Like when my work got really busy again, my garden was still beautiful and didn't turn into this, you know, messy, weedy place that I couldn't manage. It turned into a place that I would go to escape every single day and just be present in that moment. And that was the best gift that 2020, I think, could have brought me. Because what it also did was it reignited my desire to garden. In 2019, just to go back, that garden that year was not good. It was a very ugly garden. And I had said to myself, I remember this very specifically, because I had went on a work trip and I came back and everything looked terrible. And I remember saying to myself, I am not gonna do a garden in 2020. It's not worth my time. It's not worth my energy. I can't keep up with it. I can't maintain it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do one in 2020. And God had another plan. He had a lot of plans for a lot of people out there. I mean, I've heard so many stories about, you know, COVID changing people's lives for the better when that happened, just the pandemic, how everything changed, but it changed a lot of people's lives for good. Not everyone. Obviously, I know there's tons of loss and heartache, and that is an awful, like, terrible thing. Not to downplay that at all. But coming through all of it, and we're kind of more on the other side now, how much good did actually come out of it. And that's what the Lord does. He takes things that are meant for evil and destruction and he turns it to good. I mean, that's what happens, and that's what I believe. And that was my experience too. So 2020 reignited my love for gardening. It also reignited my love for creating videos, which I've had to ponder a lot about, but it makes sense. Because when I was a kid, like 12, 13, 14 years old, me and my friends, we would make like movies. We would make home movies, you know, with a camcorder. This was before, like, you know, fancy cell phones were a thing. And we would make movies. Like, that was how we hung out when we had sleepovers. We would make these movies. We would write scripts and act out our scenes, and I loved that part of my childhood. It was so much fun, and I still have like those old movies and not looking at them all the time now, but when I do, it just brings me back to this time in my life where it was just so easy and things were just so fun. And so yeah, just growing up, I was always making movies, even on my own. I have old videos of me making music videos and dance videos, and I just love to film things. And now, like, filming and editing and going through that whole process has just been really fun, and I enjoy it. Not only was my love for gardening reignited, but also my love for filmmaking and storytelling. That's why I kept up with YouTube, and it was hard. After I went back to work, it was really hard to keep up with videos and editing them. I could record something pretty easily, but the editing time does take a while. It was hard to keep up with it, but I'm really glad that over almost 3 years now, I have kept up with it, because I've kind of found ways that I can make it work a little bit better with my schedule. And I feel like it's just a really great community to be a part of and keep sharing what I'm doing and seeing what other people are doing, because I get so many ideas and inspirations from other gardeners out there, and I want to be able to do the same. Thank you for being here and being part of this journey that I have been sharing for the last 3 years. And whether you've been here from the very beginning or you just subscribed today, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, because you are helping make childhood dreams come true by allowing me to keep doing this and just keep my love for gardening going, because I was gonna give it up. And at this point in time, I don't see how I ever could give it up. So now we're in 2023, January, almost February, and I don't know what it'll look like this year for me, you know, how often I'm gonna post videos and all that. Right now, I'm like on top of it a lot more. But once the summer comes and gardening season is like in the throes, it gets a lot harder for me to keep up with it. But I will try my best and, you know, give myself grace that nothing has to be perfect. And you guys are gonna be here to support me even when things are busy. And if videos have to wait until the middle of winter to get posted, I think a lot of us appreciate that too, because when it is icky and gross outside, it can be really nice to see some beautiful gardens popping up on your feed, even if it was from a few months ago. I have my Lucille Ball cup here. It says Hot Stuff. Got this in Jamestown, New York at the Lucille Ball Museum last spring. Took a little family trip up there. So the last piece that I wanted to kind of talk through on this video was my overall story when it comes to food and how I've dealt with food through my life. Summarized version is I grew up in a very healthy home. My mom always made it a point to feed us very healthy food, organic if possible, and you know, just was always very conscious about that. Not a lot of junk food, not a lot of fast food, nothing like that. So growing up as a kid, I was in a very healthful home, and I knew what was the right things to eat. Now, I didn't like these right things to eat. Most of it did not taste good to me. Even growing up in that environment, I still was always drawn to the not so healthy options out there. But in a home, and you're under your parents' roof, you eat what they make and you eat what they have. So I did. When I was old enough to leave the house and not be under my mom's roof anymore, there was freedom in that. And, you know, I had my own job, I had my own vehicle, and I had money that I could go spend on fast food or convenience foods or whatever it was. And I did, and Carmen did. You know, my story is I'm with him through this whole time. And so we just, you know, we kind of developed these habits in our relationship that when we had free time or, you know, date nights or whatever, it was always around food. It was usually, usually very delicious food, right? You know, you got your pizza and your Taco Bell. Those were really big ones. We just kind of developed these habits of eating foods that were not great for our bodies. That continued over the years. And I will say, as I got older and cared more about what everyone was eating, you know, especially when the boys were like 2, 3, 4 years old, I was seeing things that they were having, and I didn't want them to fall into similar habits and behaviors or have similar struggles with weight and, you know, how my body, speaking for myself, like it can hold on to some fat. Let me tell you, it can hold it on. It can hold on to it real good. And I didn't want them to have to struggle with a lot of the things that I've struggled over the years. And so I would be incorporating more vegetables and more healthy things. And that's where, you know, I started like trying to juice, you know, make fruit and vegetable juices and make their own baby food mixes, you know, with produce from the store. And it got to a point where we were living at the time, I was like, I want to try and grow some of these things, because why not, right? Like we didn't have a lot of money. So I thought, if I can grow some of these plants, you know, maybe we'll save money. Now, my first garden was very small. I didn't have a lot of space to grow a lot of things, and I really didn't know what I was doing. But that first garden, I got a ripe tomato, and I got some ripe cucumbers, and lots of greens. I remember I had lots of lettuce. I did really well with lettuce that year. I had lots of kale that was covered in cabbage worms. And I learned about picking those off. And I realized, like, this food tastes so much different than anything that we buy. Like, it wasn't a lot, and it wasn't very big. But of what I did get, I noticed that it tasted different, and I noticed how proud I was that I grew this. This came from my yard. didn't come from across the country. It came from my yard. And now we're eating it, you know, on the same day I picked it. And there was a sense of pride in that. So then the next year, after, that was 2015 was when I had my first garden. The next year in 2016 is when we moved to the house we live in now. And that was the first big garden that I had ever done. I had lots of help from my mom that year because we had just moved into a new house and I really didn't know what I was doing. The previous owners, they had the garden beds already set up in that gardening area, so I was able to leverage that. And I'm very thankful for that because had it not already kind of been set up, I don't know if I actually would have gone through with doing anything. And that year, like, we got a lot of food. Now, it wasn't like the most beautiful garden, but it was super functional and we got a lot of food that year. And that really got me excited about, wow, like, we can actually do this. We can actually grow food. And it gave me enough initiative for the next year to go ahead and do it again. And this time was more on my own. And I did it in 2017, and I did it in 2018, and I did it in 2019. And every year, it seemed to get worse because I wasn't amending soil, and I wasn't really trying to do like anything rotational. Like, I was just planting things. So eventually, the nutrition in the soil, like, it just wasn't being revived, wasn't being replaced. The plants just weren't doing well. By that time, there was a lot of pest issues I was having and weeds, so many weeds. And it just got to the point where, like, it was taking over everything. So I didn't have a good system in place. But still, any food that I did get out of there, I was really excited about. And through all those years of gardening, I started to learn how to enjoy eating vegetables. Like, as a kid, like I said, I hated them. A young adult, I kind of didn't really care. I was doing my own thing and having freedom, eating Taco Bell and pizza all the time. But there came a point where I'm like, okay, this is actually important and I need to be having these things. So it's taken many years to kind of retrain my palate on things that I like and don't like. Now, if you put a pizza in front of me today, I will still be extremely tempted to eat it. And I probably would have a slice. So I'm not like condemning that at all. Like, yes, it's still very delicious, but I have been learning, especially in the last, I would say year, 2 years, how to make meals that are all whole foods based, that there are more vegetables on the plate than anything else, and really stay away from processed foods. And as I've been learning more and more about this, I've been on a health journey, like I mentioned. Over the last 3 years, I've lost 40 pounds. 30 of it was at the very end of 2022. And so I'm, still got ways to go, but I'm finally seeing like this type of lifestyle does work. And there are a lot of changes you have to do to make it happen. And it's not gonna happen overnight. But the way I felt a year ago, January of 2022 to now, January 2023, I'm like a new person. And I know that there are so many people out there struggling with the same thing. And food addiction is real. I had never heard of the term food addiction until last year. I was listening to some podcast, they were talking about food addiction and how sugar is like more addictive than cocaine. And there was a lot of like science back behind that. But again, summary, I was like, wow. And then I started like, wow, there's sugar in everything when you really look into it. And again, these are things that I kind of knew over the years. Like, my mom's been telling me, and I love her, but a lot of kids don't listen to their parents until they have experienced something or went through a struggle or have a health concern that kind of wakes them up. And then they realize, oh, yeah, I should have listened to you. But who does that? Who listens to anyone's advice until they've actually gone through something to where they need that advice? And that's kind of how my story pans out. Now I'm on the other side. I'm kind of more on the other side. I'm going through it. But, you know, I really want my channel also to inform people on how to use their produce. Like, I've grown rutabaga, for example. And I've grew rutabaga because, like, I just wanted to expand my garden and grow all the things. And now I have this rutabaga. I'm like, what do I do with a rutabaga? I don't know what it tastes like. So I cook it, and honestly, rutabaga is not my favorite vegetable. Even today, I don't love it, but I still grow it, and I will grow it in the future because, one, I know it's good for me, and two, I'm gonna keep on working out recipes till I find one that actually I enjoy. Because I also know, like, a lot of people's aversions to vegetables is because they've never eaten good ones. You've eaten your food grown from your conventional grocery store that really doesn't taste like anything. Or a big one is that you have eaten a lot of boiled vegetables, which boiled vegetables in most cases taste terrible. So there's a lot of ways you can cook vegetables that actually taste good, and you can incorporate them with other things to make flavors meld together. So I want to kind of share more along those lines of how to use the things that you're growing and use them functionally in your kitchen and using them to support your health. And your health goals are very likely not the same as my health goals, which is fine. We don't have to have the same goals. But I think everyone or most people can agree that the American diet, the standard American diet, is ruining our people. And there are diseases and ailments and issues in so many people, and more in the younger people. I think we need to talk about it more, and we need to help each other get out of that cycle, because if we don't, things are just going to get worse. So, not to put negativity on this happy celebratory video, but you know, it's a real thing. It's taken me time to kind of open my eyes up to it and see it. You know, I still love pizza, but there are ways that I can have pizza that are healthier, right? How my pizza is made, you know, I can get it from the takeout place, or I can make it myself with really great ingredients that are clean and good for my body. And it can still taste just as good, right? Or even better. And so I want to be able to share more of those things, how my health journey is going. If you resonate with any of this, like, please leave a comment, because I need lots of support in this. And I know so many others probably need support too. So I would love for us to support each other on how to just continue making ourselves healthy again, getting ourselves out of the cycle that our food industry is putting us in. And we have opportunity to make choices and decisions that will better ourselves and better our families. And you don't have to be a homesteader to do that, right? You don't have to have a huge garden to do that, or acres and acres, or raise animals to do that. If you do, that's wonderful, but not everyone can do that, right? And even me, like, I'm not in a position to raise all kinds of animals to grow our own meat, but I know people that do. I know that I can go to my good friend's farm, and, you know, if she's got meat to sell, I can support her and buy her meat, because I know that she's growing it in such a way that is the right way of doing these things. You know, it's good for the environment, it's regenerative, it's sustainable. Like, I can go and support her, right? I want to talk about all these things and how to do that, how I'm doing it, because I'm learning kind of as I go too, how to cook the wonderful, wonderful food that's coming out of my backyard, because that is hard in itself. You're so used to going to your freezer and pulling out a bag of something and throwing it in the oven for dinner. I mean, we did that for years. And now we're at a point where we're cooking meals every single day, and it does get tiring. It does. But I know that it's worth it. And I know that in the long term, we will be grateful for it. And our children will be grateful for it in the long term. you know, believe me, they would rather have takeout now. So I'm feeling what my mom felt all those years ago with myself, but I know one day they'll get it too. And just like, you know, just got to keep planting those seeds, right? Metaphorically and actually, keep planting the seeds, keep growing your food, and let's learn how to make some really great things together. Okay, so what I wanted to keep as a kind of a shorter video kind of went a little bit longer, I think, than I had anticipated. So if you're still with me here at the end, I do appreciate you listening to me talk. And again, I want this to be conversation. So while you're not talking to me right in this moment that I'm recording, please leave a comment and let me know your thoughts on anything that, you know, I've talked about today, and we can chat in the comments. Also on social media. So if I don't get to YouTube right away, you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at Sandals and Steel Toes. Sometimes I will reply to like Facebook or Instagram quicker than YouTube. All right. Thank you all again so much for subscribing, for supporting me, for being here, being part of this community. And I can't wait to see what we do in 2023 and hear all about the amazing gardens you all are growing and how we're gonna keep getting healthy together, okay? All right. Thank you all again so much. Have a wonderful day and take care.